1983 had been very, very intensely involved in doing all these different illustrations you saw. I call those illustrations maps. And that process of getting really intensely involved in that, I was doing those maps, not knowing completely why I was doing those maps, not knowing completely where they were coming from, but just knowing that very deep down in my solar plexus or in there at that level, knowing that there was a superlogical consistency to what I was doing, and that it was extremely important that I follow orders and not ask questions at that point, and really important that I not deviate from the superlogical consistency, which I could feel way deep down below. Because I knew that was what was right, even though my little mind couldn't completely comprehend everything that was going on. And then looking again at this video walkthrough that Dwayne had prepared, I was struck again by one of the facets of the whole process that kept me going was that I knew that I was feeling, or that I was being instrumented by a pattern language. And I think that's really important, that the idea of a pattern language, rather to say as distinct from an idea of an alphabet. And when we read, we ought to read the way our cerebral apparatus has been historically conditioned, particularly in the last several hundred years. We're not accustomed to operate really at a level of pattern language. And so when a lot of people look at the stuff in Earth Ascending, they freak out, and they get overwhelmed, and they say, well, I don't understand that. Well, the voice that says I don't understand that is a voice that has been completely conditioned by alphabet, linear stringing together of symbols, which we call letters, and has been totally not only conditioned by that way of looking at things and thinking about things, but has not at all been educated to look at reality or to experience reality in terms of a pattern language. Okay? And from a larger perspective, that's the key, the way things are, the way the universe is written, the way the galaxy is composed, the way life is formed is actually as a pattern language. And a pattern language is both much more primordial. It's beneath our rationality, and it's also beyond our rationality. Okay? That we look at nature and we see, we start to really look at it and we see, well, there are patterns. The blade of grass is patterned, and every blade of grass is patterned on the same pattern for every blade of grass. And that we go down even deeper into the DNA, and we see that the DNA is a pattern language. And that we look at crystals, we see that crystals are a pattern language. There's 32 categories or symmetry types of crystals. 32 symmetry types, and there's 64, double that, 33 and 64 pattern words called codons that constitute the DNA. And so deep down at the bottom of things, and things are written, using the word written metaphorically, in a pattern language, and light and radiant energy travels in cyclic patterns. Everything really is completely patterned out. And then beyond that, we get to the level where we are, and we're genetically, from an evolutionary point of view, we're at an interesting stage. We're at a stage where we have been able to, or want to look at it that way, we're at a stage where the DNA has been able to complexify and individuate out into the forms that we experience ourselves to be, forms that are able to project out particular codes of behavior, codes and cues for how to move through the environment, which tend to create particular states, what we call states of mind or states of consciousness, which, as we've seen, can develop very limited feedback loops. In other words, that we represent a stage of DNA that is self-reflexive, that we can interact with our environment and create actually artificial environments. That is to say, environments that are constructed from our conceptions of things. And then what we experience when we construct an environment that is constructed from our conception of things, what we experience then is our own feedback. So we condition ourselves that way. So we find a certain point of its capacity to create, say, an alphabet, and then we can condition ourselves, by that alphabet, we can condition ourselves to no longer experience the primal pattern language of nature. And we can construct large artificial environments called cities. And in those cities, we can get ourselves to a point where we can get to a spot where we no longer notice the larger environment, the larger pattern environment, where every so often we might notice a cloud. Every so often we might be aware of tree or something like that. But basically, where we get ourselves into a situation where we are swimming in our own feedback. And then we begin to construct our ideas and our models of reality based on this feedback, and we basically get into what we might call a situation in which secondary or second-hand knowledge and experience seems to be more important and give us more information than primary understanding or primary experience or primary knowledge. So in going back to what we were looking at in the video, in Earth Ascending, one thing I found out, as I said, I submitted to the process in doing maps, and I knew that there was something, when I say super logical, I mean that it was beyond any particular personal idea that I had about how reality is constructed. And as I later, in going over the maps of Earth Ascending, again and again later after the book was published, it was very clear to me that the material is presented from the other side. And I don't particularly mean ghosts or beyond death there, but the other side of what we usually refer to as the paradigm that we're operating in. Okay, the paradigm is for our purposes here, we can define paradigm as the tacitly, totally, completely, unconsciously accepted way that we understand the world to be. And that is, we think of the way we understand the world to be right now, in terms of literacy and democracy and industry and we're so immersed in this particular, that's the paradox. The paradox is you're so immersed in it you don't even know it, you can't even define it. Because you have to step outside of it to really define it. Part of the gift that has been presented to me, at least, has been to have been not so far off the center of the particular mainstream that we're in, that I think that was able to stand on the other side for a little bit of time and look at it and also describe not only the paradigm that we're in, but also to describe the paradigm that we're going into. And in that sense, Earth Ascending is a description, not only is it a description of the paradigm that we're going into, but in that it's presented as pattern language, that is a manifestation of the paradigm that we're going into. Last night I spoke of a process that goes from pre-history to history to post-history. And we can see that in the generally we call a prehistoric situation or condition is that we might say that there's a high level of knowing or communication that occurs as a resonant pattern language. Okay, and then as we go through the historical process, that this inherent resonant pattern language becomes replaced increasingly by artificial modes not only artificial modes of experience and learning and organization of information, but by increasingly artificial environments, which, as I said, create this kind of feedback pool that we all, this artificial feedback pool that we all swim in and call life or reality, or whatever we want. And when we're talking about going beyond the current paradigm and into post-history, then we're talking of a subtle alteration of our consciousness in which we will be operating at and again, for lack of better terms, where we're operating at a super rational, the same as a super intuitive level of resonant knowing, in which we become accustomed to experience things as whole patterns. All those words are still like describing it from the outside. And there's only one way really to get into it, and that's to get into it, to drop down or all just some way of trying to communicate to you some sense like of what this book, Earth Ascending, is about, and why it has the appearance that it has in terms like of the maps, the designs, or the patterns, or whatever you want to call it, that you were looking at. I put together a few slides taken from the book last night. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Wondering whether we should show them last night or show them today. It seemed probably better to show them today. And the slides I put together I think I put these together with some idea of dealing with this prehistory, history, post-history theme. And I can't remember exactly what it was that I was put together, so we'll see what there is. You don't know what it is, so I can start anywhere, right? So we'll do it, it doesn't matter. I like this image a lot because it's cute. And you look at it here, there's celestial types of patterns, and then it bubbles in, it turns into ooze, it turns into like a sea or ocean or water, and then above here is clouds, and then the aurora borealis, and then coming up out of this celestial primal ooze is this figure here, which is like just the two little strands of DNA. I was asked to give a talk once for the American Association of Art Therapists. I was the keynote speaker one year, 1981, and the night before I gave I was going to give my talk, I had a dream, and remembering the dream, I was looking at this drift, and I was out in some of this, my neighborhood out in this celestial space down here, and I was observing that floating through my neighborhood was a little wedge, like a wedge of pecan pie. It was floating through the celestial, starry realms, and I took my consciousness over to look at this wedge of pecan pie, and what it was a wedge that was a pie, but it was DNA pie. And it was just compact of DNA, and as it floated through space, little wisps of DNA would fall off this wedge of pie, and I looked and I realized that as these little wisps of DNA fell into the immensity of space, I boggled at the thought of the probabilities of that DNA landing someplace where it would take. And but this is precisely the process of this DNA just drifting through and finally getting there. Okay, well here we have DNA. It's drifted from the celestial into the primal ooze, and then here it arises from the primal ooze. And it's important to keep in mind that DNA is what we're talking about is information. Okay, the DNA is an information-bearing form. There's a friend of ours in Boulder, Bob Gulick, who studies sacred geometry, and he has a phrase that says that form follows frequency. Most people think that form follows frequency, but form follows frequency. And there's a primary frequency. You start talking about things like that, if you go from the unity, then the next thing is the two. Okay, so if there's any kind of information, there has to be at least two components or two elements that are manifest. And so the DNA is a good example of this. The DNA is two strands. One of the strands is considered the primary strand, and the other is the secondary strand. In other words, like you take a DNA molecule and you split it apart, the secondary strand will be goners, but the primary strand will still be able to generate another secondary strand. In other words, like all of the information that comprises the secondary strand of DNA is contained in the primary strand, and yet the primary strand needs the secondary strand in order to get an information communication flow happening. So here we have this primary double helix DNA strands rising up out of the primal ooze, and their what we might call the binary nature of DNA is represented by these two pulses, okay, which are exactly polar opposite of each other. You know, these two that pattern-wise that they're completely the opposite of each other, and that represents the primary pulsation. Okay, that DNA, before DNA is molecular, it's vibratory, and the vibratory infrastructure. You get to the vibratory level of things, and then what you're dealing with is a primary what we might call on-off pulsation, which is represented by these two elements here. That's my friend in the background there. He came and visited me all the time. I was doing these drawings, and most of the drawings he insisted that he be included in one way or another. Here he's trying to be invisible. He's trying to pretend he's not there. Couldn't fool me in the least. He really is transparent. Okay, and you'll notice also that whole image there is entitled The Binary Pulse of History. There's more to say about that. Basically, because we'll see the way we're usually taught history, it's usually from some type of ideological bias. Okay, we're taught history as if history is the great struggle to attain democracy, or as if history is the great struggle to attain industrialization, or history is the great struggle to attain to the classless proletariat society, or all these types of views. And if you look at our history books, they're all presented as if they're coming up to this point of the great and glorious us in the 20th century. And very, very, very few people look at history and see, well, first of all, what are we talking about? We're talking about history, we're talking about human beings. What are human beings? And where are they? And what's their relationship to the planet? Obviously, human beings are a function of DNA, complexified as we may be, and that obviously the DNA has a very intimate relationship to the hostess environment, which is the planet. So the idea is presented in our understanding is that history is actually what we refer to as history is actually a very, very, very minute evolutionary stage in the symbiotic relationship between the DNA and the host environment. And that we would get out of the ideology and might get on a somewhat more interesting track in referring it. And so as that function is being a stage, a very stage in the symbiotic relationship between DNA and the environment, is industry also participates, we'll see in this binary pulsation process. Now, y'all there, y'all hanging in? Okay. There's very, a lot of this has to do, one of my fantasies of late has been that there will be some new type of global television network, and I'll be able to have my own show and explain the evening news in these terms. It'll be more fun. Okay. Now, where it's just a little background stuff, where what really triggered this whole process that unfolds in Earth Ascending was when I stumbled across in a book by a man named Lama Govinda. He wrote a book called The Inner Structure of the I Ching, which I was reading late in 1982. And when I stumbled across that book and came across a brief description that he had of the identity of the ancient Chinese text called the I Ching, or Book of Changes, which consists of 64 symbols called hexagrams. And the identity of these hexagrams with the DNA codons, that when the codons are written in a binary language, using a broken line and unbroken line, there's no difference between the DNA and the I Ching. So I came across that and I thought, well, gee, why isn't this out? Why don't people know about this? Or what is this all about? Why isn't more made of this? Well, one of the reasons more isn't made of it is that one of the basic taboos of the current mechanistic materialist scientific paradigm is that there is no such thing as synchronicity. So this type of information is dismissed out, just totally dismissed out of hand. That there could be any relationship or anything could be made of this. And then again, we're always dealing with this paradigm. What glasses are we wearing? When we receive when we look at certain information. Well, anyway, I was very much excited by this. I had been studying the I Ching since about 1966 or so, and I had somehow or other always felt that the I Ching was more universal than just some type of ancient Chinese science or parlor game. And when I discovered this synchronicity of the DNA and the I Ching, I got very excited, and it put me into a frame of mind where as I mentioned last night, and I later described as a state of synchronistic grace, in which I began to see and spot, experience different synchronicities that started all falling together. It was like suddenly like I was involved in a type of weave in which the patterns started coming together. These are the 64 structures. You can call them hexagrams and you can call them DNA codons, because when you look at it like this, there's absolutely no difference in the information, binary information content that you're dealing with. The I Ching is composed of 8 3-line structures, and then any 2 of these combined creates a 6-line structure that gives you a possibility of 64 permutations, and the DNA is written with 4 nucleic acid letters, and any 3 of those in any combination also creates one of these codons, and so you have this identity. Also, it's interesting, someone could say, well, all it is just 2 examples of what happens when you have the possibility of permutations of a binary progression to the 6th power. Okay, binary progression 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Okay, which both the I Ching and the DNA are both examples of that. But then that still leaves the question saying, well, what's the deal about that? Okay, there must be some kind of significance or power to a binary progression to the 6th power if DNA is based on that, and also that the I Ching would have been based on that mathematical permutation. Anyway, the next thing that really I had been looking at that, and then the next thing I came across that inspired me was shortly after I began to work with that particular synchronicity. I was reading Science Digest, and there was an article on Benjamin Franklin's magic squares, and there was a presentation of Benjamin Franklin's magic square. Now the idea of magic squares have existed for a long time, and interestingly enough, the earliest magic square is attributed to the first emperor of China. The idea of a magic square is like, for instance, any magic square is going to have a square of 8, for instance. It's going to have 8 numbers across and 8 numbers down, arranged in a seemingly random pattern, so that any way that you add them up, they all add up to the same number. So like in this one here, 16, 15, 95, etc. Now every line adds up to 260 horizontally, and every line vertically adds up to 260. So that's what qualifies and defines a magic square. Now, when I saw this magic square of 8, I wasn't aware of the total how magic squares actually work. So when I came across this one and I looked at it, the thing that struck me was the number 260, because 260 I knew was the magic number of the Mayan calendar. And so I wonder what the relationship is. If there was a relationship between the DNA and the I Ching, I wondered what kind of relationship then there would be between the Mayan calendar, the DNA, and the I Ching, as was manifest through the magic square. Further, and I don't know, let's see if I have that one. Yeah, so Mayan calendar. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So that was the first thing I thought. Wow, there must be some kind of connection there. And then the other thing is, I looked at this. At first, it seemed like the numbers were random, but then when I looked at this thing further, I thought, well, the numbers in the magic square weren't random at all. The way Ben Franklin is described as coming up these magic squares, it's like he was a mid-18th century, witty parlor channel. He'd say, wait, I'm going to go get you another magic square, and bingo, and then here, and he'd say, here, you got one. And he did a magic square of 16. exact same pattern in it. Now, as I looked, I said, well, these numbers are all randomly arranged. I saw that the whole the magic square could be subdivided into 8 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and each of these could be divided in this manner. In other words, in each one of these sections, I see that there's a very specific number relationship. You take this one here, 1, 2, 63, 64, or 8, 7, 58, 57. Okay. Or above here, you have 1, 2, 63, 64. Then these numbers are in this relationship, 15, 16, or 49, 50. Anywhere, like 29, 30, 35, 36, 40, 19, 45, 26. So the minimal pattern that I saw in this magic square was this pattern that divides the square into 8s, and so there's 8 numbers that have this type of relationship in each of the units there. What I saw there was like this. What I saw basically was a DNA double helix pattern. In other words, so it's this principle of crossover polarity that you have. That's the double helix principle. The principle of crossover polarity of two elements of spin polarity, and then they cross over. The crossing over, which allows for communication or information transfer. Now this is the Solkin, just a 260 unit Mayan calendar here. I've presented it in its pure state. I had studied the Mayan calendar even longer than I had studied I Ching. And until I came across the magic square that showed that all the lines always add up to 260, I never really, as much as I had wanted to see some kind of connection, I never really thought that there could be a connection. The reason I always wanted to see a connection is because when the Mayan mathematical notation has some kind of uncanny resemblance to the hexagrams of the I Ching with the lines and with the dots. In any case, they're both symbolic languages like that. The Mayan calendar, which is usually referred to as the sacred calendar, is a very simple operation. It consists of 20 symbols, you see that here, and 13 numbers. And the numbers repeat over and over. In other words, you start here. Or I've got these numbers circled. These are where you have 1. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and you go back to 1 again. There's also a directional association. So it's a very interesting set of permutations. Okay, you have 13 numbers and 20 symbols. That makes 260 possibilities. So you had to see, well, there must be some relationship between all of this, and what began to strike me was that there's again, going back to how we are and how we know, is that we in our present condition, which is as individuated and individualized as you can get. Okay? Because by the very process of individualization, that we tend to cut off from the realization of the whole. Okay, so that's what I refer to Sunday. I refer to this process as holonomic amnesia. The holonomic refers to our capacity to know the whole as a whole through ourselves being whole. And amnesia means forgetfulness. that we assume that there is some a more primary condition where we are have a more holonomic resonance. Then as we enter into this historical process that we, because of this tendency to individualize, that we develop holonomic amnesia, and at a critical point, the very idea that we could be holonomic, that we could know totally, it lands some people in jail. I know it cost me jobs, okay? So what I began to see is that these little things, these weren't isolated things, this the I Ching and the DNA and magic squares and patterns, the Mayan calendar, that these weren't just isolated phenomena. If, it's like, I remember that the last Whole Earth catalog, the original last Whole Earth catalog from about 1970 or 71 or so, 72, that some kind of statement that it wasn't necessary to get it together because it already was together. Okay. It's our minds and our perceptions that are fragmented and messed up. The world isn't. And if the world is messed up at all, it's because we have been following the dictates of our fragmented minds, projecting it on the world and messing it up. But intrinsically, the planet is a whole and has always operated as a whole. The solar system is a whole and has always operated as a whole. The galaxy as a whole has always operated as a whole. Therefore, it only appears to us as isolated synchronicities from our fragmented point of view when we see, there might be a connection between the DNA and the Mayan calendar. Because there is a connection. Everything is a part of a one unified resonant field. We all participate in the same field of resonance. We are all informed by the same resonant frequencies. And we're all informed by the same resonant frequencies, and those resonant frequencies are functions of particular mathematical progressions, and by our very nature, our DNA is a function of these mathematical projections. So we're all completely unified. The different informations, the different forms of knowledge that we come up with are all completely related. And particularly when we go to the most basic, what appears to us as code levels of knowledge, DNA code, the Mayan code, the I Ching code. These are all expressions of primary functions of universal resonant frequencies. Okay, so there really is no separation. So this was what was beginning to dawn on me as I was working on this. This is another variation of the 260 unit Mayan calendar, which I was now saying obviously it was more than a calendar, and that our interpretation of this code has been very, very limited, again limited by the paradigm that we're wearing. Very, very important that we appreciate that fact. So I began to see that it definitely was a resonant matrix, and in this resonant matrix was a fundamental code language that unlocked the DNA, that unlocked our processes of knowing, that was related to primary geometrical structures that the people like Bucky Fuller had I've been working on the tetrahedron as the most primary geometrical structure. It's completely embedded in this resonant matrix because the field is unified. To get to it, then to get to this field of resonant unity, you won't get to it by listening to me, okay? I mean, it might help, but ultimately, it's in you. It's in your being, and it's in, like last night when I was talking about going across the threshold. It's like letting go of the old and getting right into your being, going across the threshold, and allowing the new to imprint. This, what you're looking at here, as I mentioned, I keep going back to this principle of resonance, and in terms of what I've since seen that was presented in Earth Ascending is what I refer to as the resonant field model. In other words, that we all operate the same resonant field, and that there are different interactive levels of this resonant field. And the three primary interactive levels are the field of electromagnetic resonance, which is symbolized by the circle here. There's the field of gravitational resonance, which is symbolized by this ellipse here. And then there's the field of biopsychic resonance. So like, look at our planet as a whole being, as a living organism, as a whole system, that the planet is a function of three interactive fields of resonance. The electromagnetic field, which is moderated and governed by the radiation belts around the planet, the etheric body of the planet. The gravitational field, which is like the geomagnetic body itself of the planet, which has its own evolving system of tectonic plates and breeze, through volcanoes and earthquakes and things like that. And then the third field is the biopsychic field, which is the whole field that runs the gamut from single-cell organisms to ineffable ecstatic experiences of gods and angels that we might have, and that all of these interact. You really can't separate these three fields. And so to get back to where we were beginning in terms like of in terms of the presentation we gave last night and the discussion we're having about how we know and the development of our own feedback loops, and also in terms of discussion of history as being not this interpretation according to ideological whim, but the history as a brief stage that describes a particular intensification, symbiotic intensification between DNA and the host environment. Okay, but here reduced down to this very simple form. Here we are back again in the primal ooze, which obviously I love to hang out in. And here we have taken. This is the code, the cosmic code with the two-dimensional DNA template in it, and we sexed it up and got our two strands coming here. And our friends over there being much less transparent, but just past the horizon. If you look at the DNA double helix information, okay, reduced to a minimum, you got this we got this thing, we got two elements down here, then there's a crossing around, looping around each other, and then element up there, and that gives you the primary information bit. And we said that there's a primary and a secondary strand. Okay, the primary strand I refer to as the AC, or the aboriginal continuity. If you break a DNA molecule, that you can create from the aboriginal of the primary strand, the second strand. Okay, second strand, the primary is AC, the second strand is the CA. AC, in terms of our development of our psychocultural processes we call history, the AC is the aboriginal continuity, the CA is the civilizational advance. This is the dialectic that creates process of history. Now, interestingly, also in DNA, one strand processes information in one direction and the other strand processes information in the other direction. Now, if we apply that to ourselves in terms of our historical process, we say one strand processes information from the future to the present, and the other strand processes information from the past to the present. Okay? The AC, the aboriginal continuity, is what processes information from the future to the present. This is dreams, intuition, vision, premonition, prophecy, foresight. That's all a function of the AC strand. Okay, whereas the information that's brought from the past to the present is the function of the CA strand, civilizational advance. Okay, that's the past found knowledge. How did Grandma bake that loaf of bread? Okay. Originally, maybe Grandma or great-great-great-great-grandma got the inspiration by tuning into her AC, but when she wanted to hand it down, she wrote it down and she transmitted it and said, "Here's how you do it," and all the information gets passed down on the CA strand. Also, they're taking this figure is a three-part figure. Then we have a phase which we refer to as pre-history, which we refer to as history, and then a phase which we're entering into, which is post-history. Okay, so history then refers to this phase in which there's an intensification of the passage of information between the AC and the CA strands. Okay, take this and develop it. A little more here again. This one here refers to the AC. This one here refers to the CA strand. And we look at the whole process of history that we're involved in. Then we see that say this up to here. See right here. This is what we refer to as pre-history, and then the actual historical process can be subdivided into three stages: the emergence of civilization, the stage of spiritual revitalization, which the religions like Buddhism and Christianity and Islam are all spiritual revitalizations of civilization, and then finally the last stage, which is the stage of global industrialization. Okay, as you look up here, you see that these stages get more and more flattened. Okay, what's happening here, and also they get darker, more these horizontal lines there. And that's because what we're also dealing with is what we refer to as the ESP-PSE factor. Okay, everybody's heard of ESP, right? Okay. Which usually translates as extrasensory perception. And now what we find is that that in the what we might call it the prehistoric consciousness state of mind, that there's a higher level of incidence of ESP, and that's because you're not dealing with you're not dealing with an artificial environment, or you're dealing with a very minimal artificial environment. Okay, and so that the capacity for extrasensory perception is much more pronounced and much more developed. Now, as you develop more artificial environment, which you're going to get to where we are, we have maximally artificial environment, is that the ESP factor is very discredited, and what you have instead is in its place is PSE, which is psychosensory elaboration. In other words, psychosensory elaboration refers to all the complexities of artificial structures that we put out that then become our feedback back. So we're getting this feedback from the complexity of our psychosensory elaboration coming back on us, and as a result we either discredit our ESP or don't believe it exists, and basically we're out of touch there. This is just basically you're looking at here is a flow, civilizational flow. This is just this is 0, 90 degrees, 180, and we're in the Suzuki back over here, 360 degrees here. Just an observation, I mentioned that the basic premise is that in actuality, what we refer to as history is a function of a larger evolutionary process. So my observation was that when you chart out, these points here represent the places on the planet where civilization emerged in a relatively pristine or pure condition. That is, that these are places where it seems that the civilization was initially developed without any outside help, okay, or without any other civilization assisting in the emergence. And so here, this is the equator here. So for the most part, you see and also as I observed that the emergence of these, two things. One is that the civilizations tend to form this horizontal band for the most part north of the equator, and for the most part between around the Tropic of Cancer and about 30 degrees north, actually, with just a couple of exceptions. And the other part that I noticed was that the emergence of these pristine centers of civilization, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, that they follow this flow pattern around here. So it was as if they were trying to emerge going around the planet. In other words, again, that the civilization, history, what we're about, is actually enfolded in a larger planetary pattern.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Your horizontal axis on that previous slide, is that time or is that distance around the Earth?
Both.
So those are both geographic locations and chronological time?
Yes. That's what I refer to as geochronological. Okay? Geochronological flow.
Jose, isn't there currently a pattern that's discernible of centers of commerce that's flowing in the opposite direction? Centers of commerce that are flowing in the opposite direction. In other words, say at one point London, England is the key point, then New York, then California, then Tokyo, etc.
There seems to be that process as well. Yeah, see, there's our word, zero chronological flow. Okay, take that. We start here in the Nile, in Mesopotamia, India, China, Mesoamerica, the Andes, and finally in West Africa. It's over here. So we take this is the timeline here. 7,000 PA is pre-atomic. Okay. 0 in 1945. Okay. The main age is after Hiroshima. This is called the AHA chronology, and it's taken that way because you see here the red represents, say, like the prehistory, and then we have these different historical streams rising up, like different funguses or whatever from this hotbed of prehistory, and then the differentiation of these streams. And as this is what I mean, originally each one of these is relatively distinct and separate from the others, but then as you begin like here around 3000 pre-atomic era, you have beginning to mix between these two streams, and then by 2000 to 1000, all of these tend to start to mix. And then it's only very recently, in the global industrial period, which is represented by the darker indigo color, that you have this total mixing, this total blending, or coming together, or chaotic profusion, intermingling of all the different streams of civilization. So this gives you some type of gauge or timeline to see this process. And so where we are is right here, just a little past 1945. We're 42 years almost now past Hiroshima, 41 years past Hiroshima. And then what you see around here, you see that this is where we are. The script is open, okay? Just beyond here, and then past where we are, you see, as I'm ready to coming on its head, is this rainbow form, which is the universal perception of the dragon or the rainbow serpent, the guardian figure that protects the earth. This is like the spirit of the evolving earth energy. And that, as I said, where we are right here, we're in a state of maximum, I spoke last night of being, the planet is in a condition of maximum dissonance, or from our perspective, we're in a condition of maximum holodynamic amnesia. And so we're at a very, very critical point there, which also represents like a point of shock, and to pass beyond that and to awaken to the new evolutionary condition that we're about to enter into. Here, just one of the things that here we have the magic square again. We have the corresponding numbers, and each hexagrams are also the corresponding amino acids. So the whole thing is there. And on top of it, what we've done here is taken this line as the equator. This line here corresponds to just over 30 degrees east Greenwich. In other words, that's the line that runs through the Great Pyramid in Egypt, which is the really initiation point of the cycle of civilization that we're just completing. Okay, so this actually can be plotted out over the globe. We are about right here right now, Calgary. Okay. And since this can be divided into 8 sections, 4 sections in the north and 4 sections in the south, it can be plotted over the Earth in this manner. Now, the term that I have been using to describe the planetary memory and information bank is the psi bank, this term right here. This is similar to Teilhard de Chardin, his concept of the noosphere. Teilhard de Chardin, the French Catholic mystic, who spoke of all planets, all planetary bodies in the universe that attain to a certain level of life and consciousness develop a noosphere, which is like the mental envelope of the planet. And Teilhard de Chardin described that as almost like a weaving, and seemed to describe very well this process here that we saw in relationship of the numbers. And since there was such an intimate relationship there between the genetic code and the I Ching, and also the relationship to the Mayan calendar there, I began to see that this seemed to be the basic pattern of the mental envelope, the noosphere, that I came to call the psi bank of the planet. The psi bank is like the memory field, and the memory bank, the memory and information storage bank of the planet. We know, like in DNA has many molecules. DNA has all the information for whatever organism or whatever part of an organism, for as long as that organism is going to be around. So, in a similar way, there's like planetary level of this, so that the information for the evolutionary unfolding of the planet is actually contained as a encoded resonant membrane that it functions in resonance with the electromagnetic field of the planet. So this is an actuality that we're talking about here. I found further something very interesting when I looked at this and saw, okay, I think this is the equator, okay, this is approximately 30 degrees east longitude running through the Great Pyramid, and then these are 90-degree segments running around from that. And when I connected the numbers, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, etc., that they create this very interesting pattern. Now, I've already been struck by the patterns intrinsic in this and the relationship that I was finding to other code systems, and then I realized that they created this pattern. If you look at this pattern very carefully, you'll see that it creates a symmetry. Okay, a figure up here and a figure down here that are completely symmetrical figures, and they're attached only at two places. They're attached at a place where there's a movement that goes from up here from number 16 to number 17, and then they're attached again here, a movement that goes from number 48 to 49. Right. So I looked at this, and because of the way these figures looked, I call this little section here where there's two crossovers, the corpus callosum of history. It's like the corpus callosum of the connective tissue of the two hemispheres of the brain. Okay, there's two little crossover places there. If everything is part of is a reflection or image of the same pattern, then we're also doing a similar process here. So it also struck me as very interesting because you go through numbers 1 through 16, then you come over here, and then you go through numbers 17 through 48, this whole thing is completed. And then you go back over in here. Now, it struck me that you took this 1 through 16, which is up here, refers to the movement that goes through prehistory. 17 through 48, but all down here is a movement that we refer to as history, and then we have a crossing back numbers 49 through 64 is the movement referring to post-history. In other words, to take this out, hold this image, it's like we, on this planet, we have a task. And the first part of the task is to create and understand what it is to live in a resonant field of wholeness. The second part of the task then is to take ourselves and spread out all over the planet, create all these communication pathways, and that part of the task, the process of doing it, the danger is that we forget that when we've got all of our communication pathways linked up, that we go back and we finish the first part of the task. So when we refer to post-history, in some ways, our mentality and our consciousness are much closer to the mentality and consciousness of pre-history. This is why there's such an interest in holistic healing, why there's such an interest in shamanism, interest in cosmic consciousness. All of these things are all connected and all related, because what we're referring to is returning to, like TSLA in the form of the four quartets. And we end up where we began, having gone through this process, like the hero's journey, only all this is the hero. Mother is calling us back home. And when we return home, we enter into that resonant, unified resonant field of consciousness, but at a higher frequency, and with the collective experience that we've had. But it is a return, and it is crossing a threshold. We're right now crossing right here, crossing this line, crossing the zero line, right here. In the I Ching, the 64 symbols of the I Ching, only two of the symbols refer to man-made objects. The one is 48, which is the well, and the one is 50, which is the God. Between those two man-made objects, 48 and 50, there is this symbol, which is revolution. And we are now, we have entered this stage of total global revolution. But revolution, in this sense, is understood as a planetary molting process. So what is being molted is the historical man, historical consciousness. This is what is being molted. And so we're entering again into understanding that we are all functioning in a common, unified field of resonance. And a common, unified field of resonance is more powerful than any ideology. It is uninvented. It has nothing to do with alphabets. So, that's why I say we're involved in a process that is, in some ways, is beyond our control, but we can participate in it by molting and getting with the program. So this is where we are. We're just crossing over right now, and where we are involved, as we have always been involved, in an inexorable evolutionary process that's taking us to new levels or stages of synthesis and integration. Yes?
I'm just wondering, how are you relating that point on your diagram to this time period?
How?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, it's clear just from an intuitive gut level that we are at a critical stage that just in we're at a point where we have to collectively come together on some very, very nitty-gritty decisions. Also, in looking at all of these events, it's clear that we're at a stage that literally is a radical turning point. So just intuitively, initially said, okay, well that's obviously we're right here. The well refers to the social, the basis of any social form or any social organization. Okay. Revolution refers to the complete renovation of the basis of social form. Cauldron refers to the transformation of all social organization. Okay, so it seems that we're definitely in this process here. As to which side of the zero we're on, that became very clear to me. I knew when I did this that this was very imminent. I knew from my study and immersion in Native American as well as ancient Mexican and South American and to some extent Tibetan prophetic traditions that we were pretty darn close to crossing over this line. So where or when is another matter. Then it became clear to me on January 24th of this year that we crossed over. And what happened on January 24th of this year was that the Voyager 2 flew by Uranus. Uranus, and that was January 24th, is in the sign Aquarius. Uranus rules Aquarius. Uranus is the 7th planet discovered in 1781 at the time of revolution, the government's revolution. 7 times 7 is 49, the number of this hexagram revolution. And on that basis, it seemed to me clear that we crossed over there to erase any doubt. 4 days later, the Challenger went up.
Jose, is there any significance to the fact that a number of the paths converge in the center?
Pardon?
In each path, is there any significance to the convergence point?
Yeah, there seems to be. It seems to be that those but we're dealing with also this as I mean, this is what really has to be understood or brought or gotten here is that we're dealing with a universal pattern language. We are functions of this pattern language that so as I said, like this, you can look at this as an image of the brain, image of patterns of history, of psychocultural development, of evolutionary processes. Okay. So here, this seems to refer to the heart center. Okay. So what we're dealing with is if we look at these places on the planet, okay, that these are heart energy places are in the Pacific. Okay. I haven't done all the plotting on this, and there's tons of research and plotting to be done with this, but it definitely refers to the etheric heart center of the planet. Now, one other thing to mention is that in regard to this, there's a story that we're told by a couple of scientists that there's a healer in California, a woman named Chris Alberta, and she has been does psychic healing or super mental or whatever, but she's been curing cancer. And she had been using a visualization, and that when she worked with the client or patient, and what she would do is she would take this visualization and first of all place it inside the brain of the client or the patient she was working with, and she then trying people to say, well, what is this visualization look like? She couldn't quite get it out, and then I should be on television right now. I am. against the camera back there. Then lo and behold, someone brought her a copy of Earth Ascending, and she was looking through it, and she said, oh, there it is. But that was the visualization she was using, and placing that in the, visualizing it in the brain of the client. We have the two hemispheres there, and asking them to play hold that visualization there. Again, just bringing that in because like when we're dealing with the principle of the holonics, okay, there's the little phrase that was in the video from the whole to the part. The whole is in the part. Every part is holy, and that we're all function of the same unified resonant field. Okay? And it's from this side of the paradigm, if you're really attached to your individuality, that can get frightening.
Jose, could you just also, when you did your research, did you relate those heart center points to certain points in history, for instance, the Renaissance or?
No, I didn't particularly, but you could. As I'm saying, this is what you're dealing with in understanding is pattern language template that has, and that's it. I didn't work out the applications. I mean, a few of the applications I'm working at now and where I've gotten to is looking much more closely at the basic pattern that is focused on the Mayan calendar, but there's lots of other applications that are there.
Excuse me, I'm getting from this paradigm that we're learning here, that this is like a new language, and you've shown us how, in so many ways, but I think we can each individually take this from this and make it a language for ourselves, for our own experience, or whatever area we are in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. See, the thing is, all I was the happy juxtaposition of molecules that was as a particular moment when this stuff came through, and one of the phrases that's coming is being ownerless in the ownerless land of vision, and so this is all for anybody and everybody, and whatever you can make of it, however you can understand it, and whatever application it may have for you, that's the way it is. That's in some ways, no patent on this.
Well, the one thing that's disturbing to me in a small way is the I Ching you say that is Calgary is number 6 for conflict.
But on that conflict, okay, let's get away from the old condition. Okay? I look at that was Richard Wilhelm and Carrie Baines and a bunch of patriarchal Chinese who came up with that description for that particular coda, okay? And the way I look at that one isn't conflict, it's the harmonic of conflict resolution.
Okay, that's the same reason.
This is the image for map 49. We saw 49 as the hexagram for molting or for revolution, and map 49, they're called revolution here. What you have here is an image of a network, and it's a radio network. In the center of it is the same symbol which you see over here on the banner. It's the banner of peace, which was brought forth by Nicholas Roerich in 1928-29 after this trip to Central Asia. Represents the circle of unity, of cosmic unity and cultural unity, and then the three spheres in the center that represent unity of what we today, from this side of the paradigm shift, might call art, science, and spirituality. That those are actually all a unity, and that the unit, the cultural, the intrinsic cultural unity. Nicholas Marx said that the basis of culture is light. He said what light is to life, culture is to our existence. In other words, culture is actually intrinsic. We think of it from this side of the paradigm shift as a thrill. We think of it as something you look for once you got the freeways built. But the culture is intrinsic. Culture is to our existence what light is to life. So that's why in the center of this network, it's the revolution. When we're talking about, in terms of when we're talking about revolution today, it's the planetary revolution, which is the molting of the skin of history. That this revolution is, and how we participate in it. We participate in this revolution by our working together as a network, working together as in small, resonating core groups that form nodes in network links that spread out all over the world. So the image for fulfilling, for how we can help the planet fulfill this stage of revolution, the molting of the skin of history, is by linking together and creating genuine networks in which we are willing to, on the one hand, to honor everybody's individuality and individual consciousness and individual contribution, and at the same time surrender to the planet, to the higher consciousness of the planet, and surrender to evolutionary possibilities that are clinging to individuality like limit us from. So all of that at once, and we have the image of the network, and at the heart of it is the understanding of the principle that the foundation of culture is light, that we are here to, in all of our complex form, to further the unfolding of the program that's contained in the primordial light. In the beginning, it was light. And here, this is again, spoke earlier, we were looking at that one map in history of all the mushrooms coming up, and the funguses, and then the rainbow dragon. The rainbow dragon, which is also known as in Mexico as the feathered serpent, or Quetzalcoatl, the plumed serpent. This image here is the image of the totality of the whole process that we're involved in, that we're, if you would, showing this some of my son's friends when this book first came out, 15, 16-year-old boys were looking at this and saying, wow, what's that? And one of them said, oh, I know. It's that we're really all just like little cells in a big dragon's body. That's it. And so, you have here in this form, again, there's 8 parts here. You have the head, and the beginning of the neck coming down here. This represents prehistory. Okay? Prehistory is the fashioning of the head of the dragon. Okay? We call history the fashioning of the body of the dragon, and as they say right now, we're in the belly of the beast. Now, post-history is the fashioning of the plumed tail of the dragon. And when that, in post-history, and those are all really different parts, too. Keep this mythic analogy going. And the head is very different than the body. The body is very different from the plumed tail that allows flight. So it's really important to keep in mind, because last time I said, well, in some ways we're returning, we're completing a circle, okay? And people think that that's regression, but it's not. But it's a whole different function that we're moving into in terms of fulfilling our evolutionary destiny and the total purpose of the planet, of which we really are a part. It's not really us. We're just maybe at this point, who knows, we may be key elements and we may not. So we do know that there is momentum, that we're literally informed by light, and that we weren't here at the beginning of evolution, and we won't be here at the end of it. So let's go see what the next stage of the adventure is. Thank you. Well, that takes us up to lunch break, so.
Oh, well,